I'm Patty Drey Busse, Managing Editor at the South Washington County Bulletin, and I'm here with Chris Reese and Tom Dippel, and we're going to be talking about Cottage Grove's Community Center Task Force and its consideration of possibly building a community center in the future. So, at this taping, the task force was still waiting for its feasibility report, but the group is moving forward with looking at sites and considering possible amenities. My first question before I ask whether you feel like a community center is needed is, where do you prioritize a community center, before or after a new city hall?
I think that's actually sort of a trick question, because that assumes that you'd be in favor of a new city hall as well. And I'm not technically opposed to a city hall, but I think they need to look at some very creative ways to use maybe other space that the city already owns or the county, and have a co-op with them. As far as a community center specifically, it's not economically feasible in my mind. Again, the people of the city have the right to say we do or don't want a community center, and if that was the case, that it was found the majority of the citizens want higher tax rates on their homes, that they want to pay through their taxes for a community center, then that's their choice. I think beyond that, though, they need to seriously look at private community center that would charge a fee to make a profit instead of the city funding it as well.
I guess to answer your question, the task force is looking at what would something be longer term. So I think even just under the definition, I would absolutely prioritize having a new city hall, basically because it's just unsafe where they have public safety right now. So the irony of being called public safety and being in the spot that they're in just isn't. It's not right. I mean, the mold issues, I can't imagine what they look like right now, from all the water that leaks into there. The fact that you have interviews going on in public spaces, I would definitely prioritize that over. And that is to say, I think both are a good idea, but I would prioritize the city hall over a community center right now.
Do you agree about that a community center should be privately run, for profit?
When I've looked at this, one of the things I thought is that there's an opportunity for a joint public-private, because when you look around at what some of the community centers that are good and that are well run and that attract a lot of people, not just from their community but from outside. It's got a lot of facets to it. It's I'm not saying this is all stuff you need, but it's got stuff you can do in the winter, stuff you can do in the summer, spring, fall. It's attached to either athletic fields or not. So I think quite frankly, there's an opportunity to really have a public-private option where the city owns parcels of land that could be their contribution to someone who wants to put a community center in, or providing tax benefits, or putting them in a TIF district, or putting up part of the funds for it. I think that's one of the things that I want to see is really what are the options. I think we need to have one. I think it's something that would make us a more attractive community, but I think there are a lot of options that need to be explored before saying how to pay for it. I don't think it's either the city does it, you raise taxes, or someone comes in and does it privately. I think you need to look at the spectrum to see what's out there and what's available.
Mm-hmm. Assuming that you were okay with how it was funded, it was private or public or whatever, where would you like to see a community center? What do you think their target area should be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's one that befuddles a lot of people, is where to put it. I think there's a couple of options. One would be somewhere along Highway 61. When we did the 2030 mapping of it, there was a lot of talk about what we could do to make that a whole commercial district going all the way down to River Oaks. Doesn't mean it has to be commercial. It could mean that there could be a community center aspect to it, or somewhere in the Ravine Parkway. We've master planned it, but it doesn't mean that there wouldn't be an option for that. I guess I would be looking for some place that's already open where you're kind of designing it around, rather than taking a space. I've seen Home Depot thrown in there a lot, but there's just a lot of logistical issues there, from parking to how to build out the space, that I don't think will work. Plus, someone's already bought it, so it should, it's not like they're going to buy it and sell it back to the city. If we wanted it, we should have bought it at auction for the discount rate.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Tom?
I think common sense says that it should be accessible to the community, and I think that's something that the task force should look at, is where is it going to be accessible for the most people that are going to be using it, because if it's Cottage Grove that's paying for it, it's the citizens that are paying for it, and therefore they should be able to get the most benefit out of it. I think what Chris said, having it along 61 would be a good thing, but again, I think we need to maybe come back to reality a little bit and realize where we're at. I understand that you can look down the road to do certain projects, and it's fine with me if somebody wants to form a task force and take a look at the feasibility of doing something, but I hope that they are fiscally in touch with reality, and the reality is you don't get involved in recreational activities when you can't even hardly take care of the necessities too.
Are there any particular community centers around this area that either of you have looked to and said that this might be a good model for us to go off?
The one that always comes up that when I hear people talk about is Shoreview.
Okay.
But then there are other, like, not first, second, or third tier suburbs, but even farther out where they've taken it to where they've built their community center, but then they've built their whole recreational athletic program around it, where they've got their soccer fields, their baseball fields, almost like what you see with Bielenberg. Mm-hmm. So I haven't been able to see any of those. I've been able to see the one in Shoreview, the one in Maple Grove. They've it's tennis, it's basketball, it's swimming, it's all those types of things, and they've all done quite well, and they've gotten my business. I've driven that far to go to them, so what's to say that no one would do the same to come here?
Mm-hmm. All right, so are you thinking it could actually be a moneymaker for the city?
If it's done right. Not just for the city, but for the tax base.
Right.
And I'd like to comment on that just a little bit. I think that if it's done privately, they have their own options of how they want to build it, where they want to build it. If the city does it, I'm opposed to it because, again, I don't see the money there, and especially looking down the road. I mean, we saw Myron Bailey and Ryan Schroeder come out and say it's going to be a tough year for our budget, and next year is going to be even harder. And we heard that last year too. And so you don't really see the value of homes increasing, therefore to increase the tax base for the city to do a project like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, it looks like Tom gets the last word. So it's been an interesting conversation. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.